Autumn 1876. Picture a small, intimate Presbyterian church beside a schoolhouse. The leaves have begun their descent, blanketing the ground in hues of amber and gold. Inside, the atmosphere is heavy with grief. The room is modestly adorned by floral arrangements conveying a sense of understated elegance. In the center of the solemn gathering lies Clara Woolner McNeil, a young woman taken at the age of 23. Too soon. She died from tuberculosis. Her face is serene, framed by delicate curls that speak of a life that was once full of promise and youthful vigor. The service is brief, laden with emotion. Words of comfort are spoken by a pastor, though they hardly pierce through the fog of sorrow enveloping those present. The mourners, wrapped in their dark attire, offer condolences and quiet words of solace to Clara's grieving family. For her little girl, who is not yet 2 years old, Clara's passing leaves a gaping void. From the perspective of a toddler, the church, where she will later be the organist, is a world of towering figures and muffled voices. Small and innocent, she stands by her grieving father's side, Hugh John. Her gaze is fixed on the casket. To her, it is not merely a box, but a profound symbol of her mother's absence. Her memories of that day would become one of the earliest, a memory that would echo throughout her life and her writing. The event is an impression, vivid and surreal, a scene seared into her young mind, influencing her future reflections and creativity. Clara Woolner McNeil's funeral was not just a farewell. It was a defining moment in the life of her young daughter, whose future literary brilliance would be inextricably linked to that sorrowful day, a legacy she unknowingly left through her daughter's words. That daughter would later reflect on that day in her autobiographical work, The Alpine Path, published in 1917. Her recollections are a bittersweet blend of sorrow and resilience, revealing a young heart grappling with the profound weight of loss. The memory of her mother's funeral, though painful, became part of the tapestry of her early life, an experience that shaped her understanding of love, loss, and the human condition. This core memory marked the beginning of a life of conflicted emotions, of an incredible sensitivity to nature, of a powerful capacity for expression and description. But it also marked the beginning of the author's feelings of loneliness, isolation, depression, and marginality as an ambitious and intelligent woman. Renowned Canadian author, her name synonymous with heartwarming tales and vibrant characters. In her most famous work, first published in 1908, she brought to life the beloved Anne Shirley, a spirited orphan girl whose imagination and resilience captivated readers. The novel quickly became a cherished classic, cementing her place in the annals of children's literature. Yet, like many women writers of her time, she faced the challenge of navigating a literary world dominated by men. To conceal her gender and gain wider acceptance, she adopted the pen name L.M. Montgomery, her initials acting as a shield against the prevailing biases of the era. This practice, though necessary, underscores the hurdles women often faced in pursuing their creative passions and achieving recognition in a male-dominated society. Born on November 30th, 1874. This is the story of Lucy Maud Montgomery, a tale of resilience, imagination, and depth. From the quiet corners of Prince Edward Island, she wove stories that captured the world's heart. A woman ahead of her time, a tale of love, loss, and the enduring power of the human spirit that continues to echo across Canada and the world. Canada, a land where dreams took flight, ideas blossomed, destinies were forged, and a rich tapestry of peoples, stories, events, and places shaped its identity. Behind every defining moment, there are faces, voices, and ideas that have shaped the nation. In 49 Degrees North, we take you to the heart of Canada's turning points, we explore how passionate individuals and the events they shaped have created the country we know today. For making this podcast possible, 49 Degrees North gratefully acknowledges the funding provided by the Government of Canada's Canadian Heritage Commemorate Canada program. Share with your friends and family and join us to continue exploring the captivating stories that have shaped this remarkable country. Lucy Maud's mother's death led to her being raised in Cavendish by her strict maternal grandparents Alexander Marquis McNeill and Lucy Woolner McNeill. Her father, Hugh John Montgomery, moved out west and remarried to Mary Ann McRae, the niece of a railroad millionaire. Lucy Maud was only 7 years old. She grew up in Prince Edward Island, and despite the challenges of a strict upbringing and the isolation of rural life, Lucy Maud found solace in nature and books, fostering her vivid imagination and storytelling abilities from an early age. Lucy Maud preferred to be called Maud instead of Lucy. Although most of Maud's childhood was spent with her maternal grandparents, she also spent time with her paternal grandfather, Donald, a staunch conservative known as the Senator, since he served in the Prince Edward Islands legislature from 1838 to 1874 and then as senator until his death in 1893. Her grandparents provided a stable, though emotionally distant environment. While they were loving in their way, the household was not warm and affectionate. This setup contributed to Montgomery's sense of isolation and introspection. She coped by escaping into her imagination, which she nurtured with copious amounts of reading and writing. At the age of 16, she joined her father and his new family in Prince Albert, Northwest Territories, now Saskatchewan. Maud described Prince Albert as raw and untested, lacking the familiarity and history of Cavendish. She soon felt homesick and disheartened by her marginal position in her father's new home, and she didn't have a good relationship with his new wife. Although she adored her father, whom she described as gentle, merry, and a wonderful storyteller, Maud's negative experience in Prince Albert and her strained relationship with her stepmother influenced her decision to return to her maternal grandparents' homestead in Prince Edward Island after only a year. Let us introduce Dr. Kate Scarth, the chair of L.M. Montgomery Studies at the University of Prince Edward Island, where she also teaches as a professor in the Department of English. She leads the L.M. Montgomery Institute, which is dedicated to the study and celebration of Montgomery's work. Dr. Scarth brings a unique perspective to understanding the cultural and environmental context of Montgomery's writing.
She spends a year in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. Her grandfather, Senator Montgomery, accompanies her out. She's very excited to spend time with her father. They do have some, wonderful times together, but she had a very difficult relationship with her stepmother. For example, like Montgomery's father, Hugh Montgomery, would call her Maudie, and her stepmother didn't like that. Her stepmother wasn't that much older than her, and there seemed to be kind of some jealousy at play. Of course, we just get Montgomery's perspective in her journals, but it was a tense enough relationship that Montgomery decides to go back to PEI after a year.
Her hometown, with its rural charm overlooking the Gulf of the St. Lawrence, its red sandy roads, beaches, rolling farmlands, and crisp open air, which she observed in solitude, would become a central element in her novels and inspire many of her literary works. Lucy Maud Montgomery's lonely childhood on Prince Edward Island led her to create imaginary friends, who became important companions and influenced her writing. They played a role in shaping her literary voice, providing her with companionship during her solitary childhood, and laid the groundwork for the imaginative worlds she would later bring to life in her works. Living in the left-hand door of a cupboard in her grandparents' parlor, Katie Maurice was one of Montgomery's earliest imaginary friends. Katie Maurice was of Maud's own age. She would later appear as a character in Anne of Green Gables, and was known for being a comforting presence during Montgomery's solitary childhood, providing her with a sense of companionship and adventure. In the right-hand door of the cupboard lived Lucy Gray. Unlike Katie Maurice, Lucy Gray was an elderly widow with a more vivid and intricate character. She was often described as a beautiful and mysterious figure, sometimes portrayed as a sort of magical companion who lived in a dreamlike world. Katie Maurice and Lucy Gray were part of a broader set of imaginary friends crucial in Maud's emotional development and contributed significantly to her imaginative storytelling. The presence of these fictional friends helped Maud cultivate her creativity and provided a safe space for emotional expression. They reflected Maud's rich inner life and her ability to create detailed and compelling fictional worlds. Dr. Kate Scarth.
With the exception of some close cousins, her grandparents didn't like having friends around. So Montgomery did have imaginary friends, probably most famously Katie Maurice. And I would say this tension between friendship and loneliness is something that follows Montgomery through her whole life. So she often felt lonely, and she really lamented the fact that childhood friends who she'd been really close to as children, they grew apart. So it was difficult seeing them because they seemed like different people from the people she had known as a child, and how important that was for Montgomery. But yeah, so it was this kind of tension between loneliness and friendship. But yes, certainly the imaginary friends kind of helped fill that void. Like Katie Maurice, it was her reflection, who she would talk to.
These imaginative and introspective qualities are vividly embodied in the character of Anne Shirley from Anne of Green Gables. In the quiet corners of her Cavendish home, amidst the gentle rhythm of her daily life, Lucy Maud Montgomery embarked on a journey that would change her life and the world of literature forever. The spark of the story of Anne of Green Gables had flickered years earlier, a simple note in her journal about an elderly couple surprised by the arrival of a spirited orphan girl instead of the boy they'd expected. Drawing upon her childhood, her love of stories, and the vibrant landscapes of Prince Edward Island, she breathed life into the unforgettable Anne Shirley, with her fiery hair and even fierier spirit. Anne of Green Gables was not born from this single inspiration, but rather a tapestry woven from the threads of Montgomery's own life and imagination. Amidst Montgomery's busy life, she began to nurture the story in 1904, stealing moments to tap away at her typewriter, giving form to the story. Self-doubt, a constant companion for many writers, whispered in her ear. But Montgomery persevered, revising and refining her manuscript until she felt it ready to face the world. Echoes of Maud's childhood loneliness, her thirst for beauty and connection, and her own flights of fancy, found their way into Anne Shirley's character. The girl's very visage is said to have been inspired by a photograph of Evelyn Nesbit, a captivating American model whose image Montgomery treasured, though she herself always maintained her characters were born purely from imagination. Avonlea, the enchanting world where Anne's story unfolds, is a love letter to Montgomery's own beloved Prince Edward Island. The rolling hills, the shimmering waters, the quaint villages, all were drawn from the landscapes that had nurtured her own imagination. The close-knit community, the simple rhythms of rural life, the unwavering moral compass of its inhabitants, these too were reflections of the world Montgomery knew so well. Avonlea would become a haven not just for Anne, but for other Montgomery heroines like Emily Starr and the captivating Story Girl, each navigating their own paths within its familiar embrace. The road to publication of the first Anne of Green Gables novel was paved with rejection. In 1905, Montgomery bravely sent her manuscript out into the world, only to have it returned time and again, each rejection a blow to her confidence. 5 publishing houses turned her down. Discouraged, Montgomery tucked the manuscript away in a hat box. For 2 long years, Anne's story lay dormant, gathering dust alongside forgotten dreams. But Montgomery's spirit was not easily extinguished. She retrieved the manuscript from its hiding place, her belief in Anne flickering anew. This time, fate smiled upon her. The Page Company of Boston recognized the story's magic, and in 1908, Anne of Green Gables was finally ushered into the world. Dr. Scarth again.
Anne of Green Gables, which came out in 1908, was immediately popular. She had a lot of commercial success, a lot of critical success too. You'd read the reviews of Anne of Green Gables and a lot of people loved it. She had all kinds of fans, including like the Governor General Earl Grey, the Prime Minister of Britain, Stanley Baldwin, Mark Twain, and then also kind of ordinary, people, young women. So lots of admiration.
Anne's charm was irresistible. The book flew off the shelves, selling an astonishing 19,000 copies in its first 5 months. Critics hailed its warmth and wit, and readers young and old fell under Anne's spell. The publisher, eager to capitalize on this unexpected triumph, wasted no time in clamoring for a sequel. And so Anne's story continued to unfold, captivating readers across the globe. Montgomery penned a total of 8 books in the Anne of Green Gables series, chronicling Anne's journey from spirited orphan to beloved wife and mother. The final chapter closed in 1921 with Rilla of Ingleside, a poignant tale set against the backdrop of World War I, where Anne's youngest daughter, Rilla, comes of age amidst the turmoil of a world at war. Montgomery was well aware of the popular Formula Anne orphan stories of her time, their predictable plots as familiar as the tides. But she was determined to create something more, something that would linger in the hearts of readers long after the final page was turned. She gave Anne, her heroine, an extra E at the end, a touch of individuality that mirrored Anne's own unique spirit. And as she sat at her window in the fading light, gazing out at the fields of Cavendish, Montgomery breathed life into a cast of characters, some inspired by real-life acquaintances, others born purely from the depths of her imagination. In Anne's vivid daydreams, her romantic notions, and her ability to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary, we see glimpses of Montgomery's own childhood companions, her imaginary friends who had populated her lonely hours. Anne's emotional intensity, her laughter and tears, her profound sensitivity to the world around her, these two echoed Montgomery's own experiences, her own journey of self-discovery and resilience. Anne often creates elaborate stories and has a penchant for dramatic flair, such as when she names the river the Lake of Shining Waters and engages in grandiose fantasies about her life. Anne's heart, like her hair, was ablaze with color. Every joy, every sorrow, every slight was felt with an intensity that echoed Montgomery's own emotional landscape. Who can forget her outbursts when her classmate, friend, and future husband, Gilbert Blythe, dared to call her carrots? That raw vulnerability and that fierce defense of her dignity spoke volumes about Anne's spirit and about the woman who created her. Montgomery's own life was a journey of self-discovery, a quest for belonging in a world that often felt too small for her dreams. These struggles found their way into her characters, their yearning for acceptance, and their battles against conformity mirroring Montgomery's own. Anne's journey, from the moment she steps off the train at Bright River, 13 kilometers from Avonlea, is a reflection of Montgomery's own longing for connection. Like her creator, Anne is an outsider, an orphan yearning for a place to call home. Her relentless pursuit of acceptance, her determination to carve out a space for herself in the world, speaks to the universal human need for belonging and understanding. Through trials and tribulations, Anne's spirit remains unbroken. Her resilience, her unyielding optimism, kept her going in the face of adversity. Even amidst her turmoil, Anne found solace in the beauty surrounding her, having developed a profound connection with nature, just like Montgomery.
The sense of place and nature was so central for Montgomery, a source of inspiration, of solace, of kind of had a therapeutical influence as well. And, we see that emphasis on place throughout the novels.
Anne Shirley, the teacher who realized her dreams of becoming a writer, the feminist who refused to be confined by societal expectations and who maintained her fierce independence, was a woman ahead of her time. Her choices were a quiet rebellion against the norms of her era. Her decision to prioritize her career over marriage, her refusal to settle for security at the cost of her dreams, echoed Montgomery's own belief in a woman's right to self-determination. Through Anne, Montgomery gave voice to her own progressive views, challenging the limitations placed on women and paving the way for generations of female trailblazers. Of all of Montgomery's characters, it was particularly Anne who dared to defy the confines of traditional gender roles. Through Anne's triumphs and tribulations, Montgomery painted a vivid picture of the societal pressures and inequalities faced by women. Anne's journey became a rallying cry for a generation, a testament to the strength and resilience of women who dared to dream beyond the limitations of their time. Education, in Montgomery's world, was a key that unlocked doors for women. Anne's thirst for knowledge, her academic achievements, and her unwavering pursuit of higher education reflected Montgomery's own belief in the transformative power of learning. Through Anne, she championed the idea that education was not just a privilege, but a birthright for women, a path to empowerment and self-fulfillment. Though her feminism was often subtle, it ran like a deep current through Montgomery's work. Her characters, with their quiet rebellions and their refusal to be silenced, challenged the status quo and paved the way for a more inclusive and equitable world.
She would not have called it feminism necessarily, but certainly, we can see her acting as a strong woman in a world that, we could call a man's world, probably. It's interesting, too, the feminism in terms of her novel. So an example that comes to my mind is the fact that Montgomery went to Dalhousie College, now Dalhousie University in Halifax, for a year and took a general suite of courses. And she would have loved to have done a whole degree. Still pretty unusual at that time for women to do a university degree, but more and more women were taking courses at Dalhousie. She didn't have the family support to do more than a year, which was a disappointment to her. But what she does in Anne of the Island, which is the third Anne book, when Anne goes to a fictional Dalhousie Redmond College in Kingsport, a fictional Halifax, Anne not only does the full 4-year degree, she thrives, academically, intellectually. She makes all these friends. She has a great time, and she gets engaged to Gilbert Blythe at the end of the novel. Spoiler alert.
Even today, Montgomery's nuanced exploration of gender roles and societal expectations continues to resonate, reminding us that the fight for equality is a timeless one. Anne of Green Gables has transcended its origins as a children's book to become a beloved classic cherished by readers of all ages. Lucy Maud Montgomery's journey in writing Anne of Green Gables is a fascinating tale of perseverance, creativity, and personal growth, a testament to Montgomery's own resilience and unwavering belief in her craft. The novel's profound impact, its ability to touch hearts and inspire dreams, has secured Montgomery's place as a literary luminary, her legacy shining brightly across the decades. Once the world awakened to Anne's magic, there was no turning back. The book's popularity grew like wildflowers in springtime, its pages turning beneath countless eager hands. Reprint after reprint rolled off the presses, a testament to the enduring power of Anne's story. Montgomery's word painted a portrait of Prince Edward Island so vivid, readers could almost taste the salty air and feel the sun-warmed earth beneath their feet. Anne's irresistible spirit, her thirst for knowledge, and her unwavering belief in the power of imagination struck a chord with readers young and old. The novel found its way into classrooms, its pages sparking discussions about identity, resilience, and the transformative power of storytelling. Anne's journey became a shared experience, her triumphs and struggles mirroring the universal human experience. Montgomery's enduring legacy is evident in the countless adaptations of her work. From stage plays to musicals to animated series, each retelling breathing new life into her timeless tale and introducing Anne to fresh generations. On television, there was the beloved 1985 miniseries starring Megan Follows, and more recently the Netflix series Anne with an E, which spanned 3 seasons from 2017 to 2019. These adaptations have rekindled the magic of Anne's story, reminding us of the enduring power of her spirit and ensuring that her legacy lives on. As viewers fall in love with Anne, they also fall in love with Prince Edward Island, its landscapes forever entwined with the magic of Montgomery's words. The island has become a pilgrimage site for Anne's devoted fans, drawn to walk in her footsteps and experience the beauty that inspired Montgomery's imagination. Montgomery's Prince Edward Island is more than just a setting. It's a character in its own right, its rolling hills and shimmering shores etched into the hearts of readers worldwide. Green Gables, the house that Anne called home, stands as a testament to the enduring power of her story, a beacon for kindred spirits seeking a connection to the world Montgomery created. United by their love for Anne and the world she inhabits, Montgomery's legacy lives on, not just in her books, but in the hearts of those who continue to find solace, inspiration, and a sense of belonging in her timeless tales. The publication of Anne of Green Gables was a watershed moment, propelling Montgomery from the quiet corners of Cavendish to the world stage. But even as Anne's story reached its conclusion, Montgomery's creative spirit continued to soar. She had other tales to tell, other characters yearning to be brought to life. From the poetic landscapes of Prince Edward Island to the bustling streets of Toronto, Montgomery's imagination knew no bounds, a testament to her enduring talent and her profound understanding of the human heart. Lucy Maud Montgomery is best known for her beloved series of novels featuring Anne Shirley, a spirited and imaginative orphan girl. But the flawed and relatable Anne Shirley was not the only compelling female character to emerge from Montgomery's imagination. The Story Girl and The Golden Road are two beloved novels offering readers a delightful journey through the enchanting world of a new type of heroine, offering readers a different perspective on girlhood. These two novels, published in 1911 and 1913, were well received and enjoyed moderate success. The Story Girl, said to be Lucy Maud Montgomery's favorite novel, is based on family tales she heard from her great-aunt Mary Lawson. The Story Girl became a vessel for Montgomery to share these stories and explore the art of storytelling itself. While Montgomery denied that Sarah was directly based on her own life, she acknowledged that The Story Girl reflected her real style more than some of her other works. Dr. Kate Scarth.
I know that she said that A Story Girl was her favorite. And I'm trying to think, like, that was when she wrote it. I'm not sure if she revised her opinion later on. But A Story Girl is one also, speaking to your autofiction question, that is one that draws a lot on family history and family stories. So Montgomery McNeill family stories. And in A Story Girl, which was the inspiration for the Road to Avonlea series as well, in terms of talking about legacy, is about this young girl, Sarah Stanley, who's this amazing storyteller. So, a storyteller within the story who entertains her cousins, telling them stories about place, family, people. So that was one that Montgomery herself really loved. And I guess, she herself was a storyteller and really grew up with oral storytelling traditions.
Sarah Stanley's love for Prince Edward Island, her appreciation for nature, and her captivating storytelling abilities share similarities with Montgomery's own traits. While new characters were introduced in subsequent books, Anne, of Green Gables, continued to live. Clearly, Montgomery felt a connection to all her characters, sharing different aspects of herself and her experiences within their unique stories. In the 1920s, she published the Emily of New Moon trilogy, where Emily Bird Starr, a young girl with a keen sense of imagination, is also an aspiring writer who shares her adventures and challenges growing up on Prince Edward Island.
That's interesting because she does borrow from her own life. It's a bit of a patchwork. Like, people often want to know, where is New Moon in the Emily and New Moon series, or where is Ingleside in the later Anne books? And, and sometimes we can point to a place, but a lot of the times it's like really borrowing from a bunch of different places. In the Alpine Path, Montgomery's memoir, and then in her journal, she sometimes goes through and is like, okay, well, here's where I got this and here's where I got that. And certainly if you read the Alpine Path, you'll recognize lots of things, like the Haunted Wood, for example. I think that is an interesting way of thinking about it, especially in terms of, what does get changed, right? Like that example of Anne and that transformation. But then also the Emily of New Moon series is the series that's most autobiographical.
The series explores themes similar to those in Montgomery's Anne of Green Gables series, but with a different focus and tone. The Blue Castle, published in 1926, is one of Lucy Maud Montgomery's novels aimed at an adult audience. It diverges from her more famous children's and young adult work series. It is the only book that she wrote that is entirely set outside of Prince Edward Island.
The Blue Castle seems to be increasingly a fan favorite. I talk to a lot of people and they say that's their favorite Montgomery book. It's the only one that is not set at all in PEI. It's set in the Muskoka region of Ontario.
It offers a mature and somewhat unconventional story. A romantic tale about Valency Sterling, a woman who, after receiving a terminal diagnosis, decides to live her life on her own terms. In late 1931, she published A Tangled Web, which was not as financially successful as Montgomery's earlier works. The novel centers, over 3 decades, on a community of 2 families, the Penhallows and the Darks. Marriages and relationships between these 2 families created a tangled web of emotions. As always, female characters like Aunt Becky Dark, Jane Stewart, Aunt Olivia, Lucinda Penhallow, and Cynthia Dark, with their diverse personalities and motivations, take center stage and contribute to the complexity and intrigue of a tangled web. Jane of Lantern Hill was born from an idea Montgomery had in May 1936. The last chapter was written a few months later in February 1937. The novel, published the same year, is dedicated to J.L., her companion cat. It is one of Lucy Maud Montgomery's later novels and reflects her continued interest in themes of personal growth and family dynamics. The heroine, Jane Victoria Stewart, who preferred to be called Victoria, discovers a new perspective on life after visiting her estranged father in the city. In 1990, the book was adapted into a telefilm, produced by Sullivan Films of the acclaimed Anne of Green Gables miniseries and Road to Avonlea series. Work on a new Jane book began in April 1939, but the sequel was never completed.
There's Jane of Lantern Hill, there's the Pat series, The Tangled Web, Magic for Marigold, many heroines to discover. And, some of the themes we've been talking about, friendship, family, place, you can see them weaving through all the books, but it's really interesting how Montgomery is able to do something, I think, new with them in each book, with each heroine.
The Anne of Green Gables series, comprising 8 novels, chronicles Anne's life from childhood to motherhood. Montgomery further enriched this world with Chronicles of Avonlea and Further Chronicles of Avonlea, 2 collections of short stories offering glimpses into the lives of the beloved Avonlea residents. Lucy Maud Montgomery's love life was sparked by a complex interplay of longing for companionship, a cautious view of marriage, and a tendency to romanticize unsuitable partners. Writing was both her solace and her path to success, but this success may not have transposed well into her personal life, as her early relationships were characterized by unanswered affections and her own reluctance to commit. Though she was a captivating young woman who attracted many admirers, Lucy Maud Montgomery often found their attentions unwelcome or their personalities simply didn't align with her own. She gracefully declined proposals from Nate Lockhart, John A. Mustard, and Will Pritchard, cherishing their friendship more than any romantic entanglement they offered. Lockhart was Montgomery's childhood friend who became romantically interested in her when she was 14 years old. Montgomery, however, saw their relationship as merely a humorous friendship and rejected his marriage proposal. Mustard, Montgomery's former schoolteacher, had unsuccessfully pursued her since her teenage years. She found his constant visits and narrow-minded conversation tedious and resisted his attempts to become more than friends. As for Pritchard, the brother of her dear friend Laura, fared somewhat better in Montgomery's eyes. Though she enjoyed a genuinely amiable friendship with him, she ultimately rebuffed his romantic advances and declined his marriage proposal. Even so, Montgomery and Pritchard maintained a warm correspondence until his untimely death from influenza in 1897. Yearning for love and protection, and perhaps feeling a bit discouraged by her prospects, Lucy Maud accepted a proposal from Edwin Simpson in 1897. However, she soon found herself disillusioned. Simpson's self-absorption and vanity became evident, and their interactions left her feeling a deep sense of revulsion. Ultimately, she made the difficult decision to break off the engagement in 1898. It was during this period that she experienced a passionate affair with Herman Lurd, describing it as a wild, all-consuming love. However, societal and family pressures and her own reservations about Lurd's social standing led her to end the relationship. His untimely and upsetting death in 1899 left a lasting impact on her, cementing his place as the one who got away. In 1906, Montgomery became secretly engaged to Ewan MacDonald, a Presbyterian minister. They married in 1911 after a long courtship and had 3 sons together, one of whom was stillborn. Montgomery admitted in her writings that she didn't love MacDonald in the same way that she had loved Herman Lurd. While MacDonald returned to a ministry post in Scotland, Montgomery remained in Cavendish to care for her ailing grandmother. During this time, she was courted by Oliver Cromwell MacNeill, her second cousin. She felt the rekindling of passion, the flame of the senses reignited, but ultimately chose to honor her commitment to MacDonald and ended her relationship with MacNeill. MacDonald may have been a marriage of convenience. Montgomery seemed to have abandoned the pursuit of passionate love. While sources don't explicitly describe their relationship as unhappy, they hint at a lack of passionate connection she craved. Her journals and letters suggest that during her marriage to MacDonald, she found solace in her writing, her children, and her close friendships, perhaps compensating for the lack of romantic fulfillment in her marriage. Dr. Kate Scarth, chair of the L.M. Montgomery Studies.
Just reading a journal entry where she outlines all of her love affairs. There were, many men who, in her journals, she says were in love with her. She went on. A big part of dating was asking to walk a young woman home from a prayer meeting, for example, from at church, but then also going for rides in carriages or in sleighs. So she would have had kind of many flirtations with young men. She was engaged to her cousin, Edwin Simpson, and that was a huge source of stress because she kind of realized right away that was not going to work out. And it took a lot of convincing for him to let that relationship go. So she eventually gets engaged to Ewan MacDonald, who is the local minister. And their relationship is private for a while, secret, because Montgomery was still taking care of her grandmother. And then they eventually get married, I think, in 1911. So she's in her late 30s at that point. And that's when they moved to Ontario. Lots of relationships with men, starting with Nate Lockhart in her school days, who had very similar interests to her, very literary minded. They would share books. I think the great passionate relationship of her life was with Herman Laird, and she boarded with that family when she was a school teacher, and that was a very intense physical relationship. But in terms of, class or intellect, she knew that she couldn't quite marry him. But the memory of him kind of never left her.
While her imaginative inclination fueled her literary success, it may have also hindered her ability to form lasting romantic bonds. Her writings, particularly her extensive journals written in the scenic village of Norval, Ontario, reveal a lingering sense of longing and a wistful reflection on what might have been had she followed her heart more boldly. She often romanticized differences, believing them essential for passionate love, a tendency that could explain her attraction to men who were ultimately unsuitable for her. The novels Emily's Quest, Magic of Marigold, Pat of Silver Bush, and Mistress Pat were published while living in Norval. Though she did achieve a stable family life, her story serves as a poignant reminder that societal expectations, personal anxieties, and the twists and turns of fate often shape romantic choices, leaving a legacy of both fulfillment and quiet regret. Her later years were marked by ongoing health issues and the pressures of fame. Both Montgomery and her husband, Ewan MacDonald, suffered from depression. In 1935, they relocated to Humber River in Toronto. She named the house where she lived until her death in 1942, Journey's End. This period was marked by both personal struggles and creative output. After a 15-year hiatus, Montgomery resumed writing about Anne Shirley, publishing *And of Windy Poplars* in 1936 and *And of Ingleside* in 1939. These two installments in Anne's life were interspersed with the publication of *Jan of Lantern Hill* in 1937, a story inspired by her new life in Toronto and partially set in a neighborhood similar to her own near the Humber River. While outwardly successful, Montgomery grappled with personal difficulties. Ewan's mental health, which had been deteriorating for years, continued to worsen during this time. This weighed heavily on Montgomery, who confided in her journal about the toll it took on her own well-being. Her eldest son, Chester, added to her anxieties with his troubled behavior, which reportedly contributed to her deteriorating mental state, leading her to rely on a combination of bromides and barbiturates to manage her depression. This dependence likely contributed to her declining health and may have played a role in her death. Despite her struggles, Montgomery maintained a public persona of cheerfulness, attending events and connecting and corresponding with fans and readers worldwide. However, her final journal entries and letters reveal a sense of despair and a longing for release. Though her death on April 24, 1942, was officially attributed to heart failure, the exact circumstances remain shrouded in quiet speculation. Some scholars have suggested that an accidental overdose fueled by her dependence on barbiturates might have played a role. However, for the 100th anniversary of Anne of Green Gables, Montgomery's granddaughter, Kate MacDonald Butler, shed a new light on this somber chapter. In a poignant essay, she revealed that Montgomery's family believed she had died by suicide. A note discovered by her son on her bedside table spoke of unbearable pain and a plea for forgiveness, suggesting that she may have intentionally ended her life through a drug overdose. She was 67. Mary Henley Rubio, a Montgomery scholar, however, suggested the note might not be a suicide note, but rather a draft entry for Montgomery's journals, written 2 days before her death. Montgomery's funeral was held at the Cavendish United Church. She was buried at the Cavendish Community Cemetery in Cavendish. Montgomery was a prolific short story writer, publishing over 500 short stories in her lifetime. Many of these appeared in magazines and newspapers in the early 20th century, showcasing her versatility and ability to capture the hearts of readers across different formats. Numerous collections of her short stories have been published posthumously, further cementing her legacy in this genre. While perhaps less renowned for her poetry than her novels, Montgomery was a dedicated poet through her life. She published one book of poetry titled The Watchman and Other Poems in 1916. Similar to her short stories, collections of her poetry have been published after her death, highlighting the enduring appeal of her work in this format. Beyond fiction and poetry, Lucy Maud also penned numerous essays and articles, often contributing to magazines and newspapers. These writings showcased her insightful observations on life, society, and her own creative process. She shared a glimpse into her life and career with her brief autobiographical account, The Alpine Path, The Story of My Career, originally published in 1917. This work provides valuable context for understanding her literary journey and personal experiences. Although not published in their entirety during her lifetime, Montgomery's extensive journals and letters offer an intimate portrait of her inner world, thoughts, and experiences. These personal writings were meticulously edited and published posthumously in multiple volumes. They too provided valuable insights into her creative processes, relationships, and struggles with mental health. Montgomery's writings often explore themes of imagination, resilience, and the search for belonging, resonating with readers across generations. Her characters, particularly her strong female protagonists, navigate personal challenges and societal expectations, offering nuanced perspectives on gender roles and self-empowerment. While her stories are deeply rooted in the idyllic landscapes and close-knit communities of Prince Edward Island, they also tackle universal themes of love, loss, and the enduring power of the human spirit, ensuring their continued relevance and appeal to a global audience. Montgomery's literary legacy is further cemented by numerous adaptations of her work in various media, including film, television, and theater. These adaptations have not only introduced her stories to new audiences, but also solidified her cultural significance and contributed to the enduring popularity of her beloved characters and the enchanting world of Prince Edward Island she so vividly brought to life. Montgomery's works, particularly the Anne of Green Gables series, have transcended geographical boundaries and cultural differences to achieve remarkable global popularity. Translated into numerous languages and adapted into various formats, her stories continue to resonate with readers worldwide. Finding beauty in everyday moments, she possessed a unique ability to craft heartwarming and engaging narratives that appealed to readers of all ages. Her skillful use of language, vivid descriptions, and relatable characters created timeless stories that continue to enchant and inspire audiences. Her name is synonymous with idyllic landscapes and heartwarming characters she brought to life. Her vivid descriptions of Prince Edward Island transformed her childhood home into a literary pilgrimage site. Tourists from around the world flocked to Cavendish to experience the sacred sites associated with Anne of Green Gables and immerse themselves in the world she created. Her literary legacy extends far beyond Anne of Green Gables, as she was a master of multiple formats. Her extensive body of work, much of which continues to be discovered and enjoyed by readers today, stands as a testament to her enduring talent and literary impact. Lucy Maud Montgomery leaves us with a profound and multifaceted legacy. She left behind a rich tapestry woven from her heartwarming stories, insightful reflections on life and womanhood, and an unwavering dedication to her craft that continues to inspire generations of readers and writers. Arguably Canada's most celebrated author, her works have secured a prominent place in the Canadian literary canon, studied in schools and cherished by readers of all ages. Her life and works have become the subject of increasing scholarly interest, with researchers analyzing her writing, exploring her personal journals and letters, and examining her cultural impact. This ongoing scholarship ensures that her legacy remains relevant and continues to evolve with new interpretations and insights.
I feel like that legacy is just growing and growing all the time. I spoke at an event this summer where the Royal Canadian Mint launched a coin that features Montgomery for Montgomery's 150th birthday. So I think that she's now recognized as a great Canadian writer, and certainly she's influenced a lot of Canadian writers, especially women. Female, can't really avoid either talking about her. I think of Margaret Atwood's wonderful piece about how Anne of Green Gables is really Marilla's story. Marilla's the one who changes over the course of the book. But, Alice Munro, the Nobel laureate, Carol Shields, all these great Canadian writers have been influenced by Montgomery or engaged with her work in some way. I've been spending a lot of time reading other works inspired by her work, like Mariko Tamaki, a Canadian writer who wrote Anne of Greenville, which is actually set in the States, but it's about a queer Japanese character kind of inspired by Anne. She's got red hair. She is also been adopted. There's the anthology that just came out where all the characters, there had to be a reference to red hair, to orphans. The main character had to be called Anne, but otherwise they had to draw on themes like imagination, a sense of place that are important to the Anne books. Those are all literary examples, but of course, like Anne with an E recently, the Netflix series, it has had a huge impact, bringing new audiences to Montgomery. So, and it seems like people see that series, then read the books, and even though they're really different, can kind of appreciate both. So I'm really excited about how series like that can bring new people to Montgomery. My colleague Trina Fravor and I have been collecting stories through our Your Ella Montgomery Story Project, where we ask people about, how did you first encounter Montgomery? How has Montgomery changed your life? And it's kind of amazing how important Anne and their heroines and these books are for people. People, turn to Montgomery in difficult moments. Sometimes her books are a place to escape. Sometimes they're kind of guides of how to navigate difficult moments. I keep quoting Alexander MacLeod too. He said something like, Montgomery's journals are one of the greatest contributions to our Canadian literature. And so I think it's really important to remember that Montgomery, wrote a novel that's super famous, but she wrote a lot of other novels too, short stories, poetry. She kept scrapbooks. She was a photographer. She kept journals over decades. She wrote letters, sent postcards. She was just an amazing creator and preserver of her own world and her own thoughts. So she leaves this tremendous legacy to us.
Throughout her life and career, Montgomery actively advocated for greater recognition of Canadian writers and storytellers, fostering a thriving literary scene within Canada. Exploring the complexities of womanhood in the early 20th century, her novels and short stories delved into themes of female ambition, societal expectations, romantic longing, and the challenges of balancing personal fulfillment with traditional roles. Despite facing personal hardships, Montgomery created characters like Anne Shirley and Emily Starr who embodied resilience, intelligence, and a determination to pursue their dreams. These characters served as positive role models for young girls, inspiring them to embrace their individuality and challenge societal norms. Her success as a female author in a male-dominated field paved the way for future generations of women writers. Her dedication to her craft, her insightful observations on life, and her ability to connect with readers across generations continue to stimulate aspiring authors, proving that a woman's humble name could be indeed etched into the shining scroll of literary achievement. Lucy Maud Montgomery's prolific writing career, marked by its versatility, insightful observations on life and womanhood, and timeless appeal, has left an indelible mark on Canadian culture, the global literary landscape, and the hearts of readers worldwide. Her enduring legacy lies not only in the beloved stories she created, but also in her subtle yet significant contributions to feminist thought and her lasting impact on Canadian culture. In the world often marked by uncertainty and hardship, her stories continue to offer solace, inspiration, and a testament to the power of imagination to transcend time and connect us all through shared human experiences. As we celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lucy Maud Montgomery's birth, we honor the countless individuals whose courage and dedication have shaped Canada into the nation it is today. Their stories, woven into the very fabric of our history, echo not just in the pages of textbooks, but in the streets we walk and the landmarks that grace our skylines. Next time you stroll through your city or town, take a moment to pause and reflect. Every street name, every building whispers tales of our past. They are living monuments to the explorers, pioneers, and visionaries who built this country, brick by brick, dream by dream. This journey through Canada's rich tapestry of events, people, and places is made possible by the generous support of the Government of Canada. Share this podcast with your family and friends, and together, let's uncover the hidden treasures of our shared heritage. Don't forget to explore the other captivating episodes of 49 Degrees North, where we delve deeper into the fascinating stories that have shaped Canada into a remarkable country.